Thank you very much for your attention so far, and most of all, contributions. We love them, and please keep bringing in, keep asking questions, keep participating, because that is how we learn what the people want. Because you represent your organizations, you represent your members in the scheme, you represent the administrators, you represent the fund managers, so we need people like you, and that is how we understand what we can do next in the next event. So my topic today is what is the approach of pension funds towards investment strategies in Africa? That is my topic today. I chose that topic because I've been working with the different organizations across Uganda, Kenya, Malawi. I was in Dubai recently, and we're talking about their pension scheme. We've been talking about schemes in Rwanda. And mainly my role has been mainly in Europe, where I've lived for quite a long time, and I attained my experience from there. For the last 15 years, I've been working in pensions and investment. So if you look on my pages, I think everybody has that. I'm not going to explain a lot about myself, but briefly, in 2015, I decided to found my own organization, which is Evolutions Pension and Benefit Services Limited. And I also decided to start writing about pension because I looked on the market and there wasn't anything in Uganda, in Kenya and Tanzania. Michael, you have a lot in South Africa. So, and then I said, why is it only South Africa? And Nigeria was coming in, and I said, we have to do a lot in East Africa and Central Africa. So then I came up with that magazine. The Kenyans embraced it a lot. Thank you very much. And for the award in 2017. And then this year, United Kingdom also recognized it. So I got the Global Award as a pension journalist in Africa from United Kingdom. So it is sessions like this that we actually learn what to write about. And what I write about is not only just to fill a magazine, but companies have come back to me and there's a magazine it's called Amazon Watch, and they said, Farida, we don't receive your articles, what's happening? Can you please send us more, send us more? So people are recognizing it, and it's changing the structure of their companies and the way of life. So it's working. So today, I usually want to go back to the basics. And where did it start from? And then you build it up. So pension schemes, and everybody who works in the pension is saying it's very complicated. It's complex, it's very complicated. People don't understand it. How do they come to this result? I've had members come up to me and said, hang on, Farida, I've been working for 10 years. And this is the money you're saying you're going to pay me at the end of retirement. And so you then have to sit with them or speak to them and tell them how much they earn, how much they've been contributing. A lot of people think that the more they spend in employment, the more they'll earn, the bigger the pension. So there's a lot of questions from members, especially in Africa, who are just starting to actually contribute, that they don't actually understand the basic of pension at all. They just don't understand it. So that is why I want to start from there. Why do pension schemes need trustees? What is the role of a trustee in the pension scheme? Everybody is saying, oh, what are you? I am a trustee. So what's your role? I've asked a lot of trustees and they actually don't understand their roles. And so that is why I always want to come back to the basics. And then I also, so my presentation is going to be a few questions, then I go back and then I start presenting it, okay? And then what is a pension? How does pension build up? What is a pension scheme? What are the different types of pension schemes? And how can we maximize pension in the pension funds? We set up, like, I'll use an example like in Uganda, when liberalization came up. A lot of insurance companies were very excited, and the only thing they were thinking about was to start making profit before even the contributors come in. So, but how do you, then they found out that it is very hard to bring on people to start contributing. And how do we speak to the public to make them contribute? If we bring in, if we pass the news about pension and how well people will actually benefit after retirement with their standards of living, then they will understand it. They've got to understand the concept of pension before they actually sign up to start contribution. There is a lot of stigma about pension because most people think, oh, I don't think I'm going to live enough. Why should I contribute? The money sits there for a long time. Did they say around 60 years? Who is going to wait for that? So people need to understand the concept of pension. And it's you people who are going to, the professionals working in this sector, that are going to actually talk to the people and understand the pension. Then they will come up and contribute. And that is how we're going to maximize pension contributions into funds. Otherwise, it will never work. So, working age population in Africa will increase, as will the number of years spent in retirement. Why did I bring that phase up? I'm going to speak about population and how, and I think I spoke about that in my presentation. So if I go back to why people regard pension as complex and why do pension schemes need trustees? So those are my roles, and that is the concept of trustees, to ensure effective governance of pension schemes, to protect and make sure that members get their pension correctly, and simplify the complexity and understanding of pension to members, to monitor fund managers and assessing risk management when making investment decisions, appropriate accountability, which is very, very complex at the moment, which is part of transparency. That is one of the major things that is hindering a lot of pension funds in Africa. There's a lot of lack of transparency in pension funds. Effective trustee boards to ensure effective communication and relationship within the governing board and administrators. So if a trustee, because we bring up sessions of trustees and train them, trustees need to know, to be aware of the policies of the fund they're actually governing. A lot of trustees are not aware of even the policies that govern the trustees that actually of pension schemes they're representing. One of the major key factors is that the trustees actually represent members. They don't represent themselves in the positions they're in. They represent the benefits of the members in the fund. They are there to make sure that the members get the correct amount of pension and understand the concept of the policies and understand investment of how to go about it. So the trustees are not administrators. They're on the board to represent the members of the fund. And if we don't have trustees, then members are not going to be represented. Okay? So I'm not going to talk much about this because everybody I understand in this room know what pension is. It's a lifetime saving that is payable after retirement. And how does it build up? It can build up through self-contribution, through employment contribution, an employer contributing, and an employee contributing, and it can be topped up by an employee. A pension scheme, I think everybody knows that. And what are the differences of the pension schemes? And we have the defined benefit, defined contribution, and the hybrids. So these are, you'd look at this as a very key concept, but the reason why I brought this is mainly to talk about how we maximize pension. That is the key factor here. We need public sessions, we need pension funds administrators to go out there and speak to the public to understand. But first, we need a lot of skilling, professional skilling in different companies, in different pension schemes on top to understand what they're offering, to improve customer service such that the immediate person who speaks to the member and to the public understands exactly what they're talking about. Then the member will actually understand. We've got a lot of customer service where you call a company and they can't even explain what it is. And the person sitting on top is not even aware of what is happening, but he doesn't see why contributions, he doesn't understand why contributions are not coming in. So we've got to understand where the problem is in the fund and how to maximize contributions. Members can set up personal pension. In some countries it's allowed, but in many African countries, if you're in the National Social Security Fund, then you're not allowed to actually open up a different personal pension. But in some countries, it's allowed. That can be utilized as well. Auto-enrollment, which is, I think Caroline talked about that, compulsory contributions, whereby everybody who is in employment should contribute. The major problem in Africa lies in the private sector. I think we're looking at the public and the people in employment more, but in the business and entrepreneurship, there's a lot of money in businesses and entrepreneurship, and people there don't understand the concept of pension, and we're not tapping it. You can find a businessman, but he doesn't have a pension. He'll tell you, I have a life assurance. So we're concentrating mainly on the working force within the employment sector, but we're not concentrating on the entrepreneurship and the businesses, and people there have more money than actually those who are being employed in the working force. So we need to start looking at that, of how to bring them in and understanding the concept of pension in the funds. So I'll go back to one of the major factors, and this I mentioned in my presentation, is that working age population in Africa will increase, as will the number of years spent in retirement. So the more people live longer, the more they'll have to claim retirement. But what are we doing about that? I'll give you an example in my country, in Uganda, where I come from originally, although I live in the United Kingdom. The retirement age in Uganda is 55 years of age. And currently the parliament is negotiating to bring it down to 45 years. So, and that's the reality. I was there in February, and I made a session, and I did advise about it. It's very detailed. I can't speak a lot about it, but they're debating to bring it down to 45 years. as early retirement. That's not the national age, it's the early retirement age. So if someone retires at age 50, and then we're saying that the people are living longer, then they have an additional 30 years. And if it's a defined benefit contribution, if it's not a DC, then you've got to cater for that person if they take out an annuity. So what are pension schemes doing about that, those who are still in the DB? And I know a lot of DB are turning into DCs, but we still have DBs, and these are mainly in the civil service sector in Africa. So we've got to start thinking of how we're going to deal with a situation like that. The statistics show that Africa has the lowest early retirement age average. And if we retire people early, then it means that we're going to pay them, mainly if these are under DB. If you're under DC, then that's fine. But still, if you take out an annuity or a buyout under insurance, that means that you're going to look after that person for quite a long period of time. And if if we have an aging group, that means that people are going to stay in retirement longer. So what action needs to be taken in respect of the increased aging population? What I have down here is, one is maximize contribution through automatic enrollment and public awareness highlighting its benefits. I've talked about how we can maximize contributions and automatic enrollment, which is compulsory enrollment. So if, let's say, we have a working force that is starting at 16 years of age or 17 or 18, the moment someone starts working at the age of 18, then they'll start contributing. Even if they come out of employment, if they come back, then they continue from there. So if we have compulsory and automatic enrollment, that means that we're sure that whoever is starting employment is then contributing. So we've got the correct statistics of who is actually contributing. Instead of having eligibility to enter a pension scheme, which still exists in many African pension funds, whereby someone works for 3 months, 6 months before they're actually allowed or earn a specific amount of salary for them to be eligible to go into a pension scheme. So I think between that period of time, you're denying them the contribution, and yet they're actually capable of doing that. So start saving as early as possible, which is a personal saving. It doesn't necessarily need to be a pension. It can be a fixed saving, and then you can transfer that into a pension fund when you open one. Contributory members should have more access in decision making in terms of pension fund investment asset allocation of individual accounts within the fund. I always advocate for that. This works mainly where members, we now have self-service schemes whereby members go in, especially the DC, and then look at look at their investments, and then they take control of their investments, obviously with advisory. In Europe, you can actually decide which funds where you want to go, and I believe it also here and in South Africa as well. So, but in many pension funds in Africa, there's still a lot of work to do because we give a lot of work to the fund managers. I think part of that should be passed to the member. That is going to ease administration work for the fund managers, administration work for the pension schemes as well. When you give, obviously they need advisory, not just to put money everywhere, because this is lifetime saving. But I believe we still hold a lot of authority under investment for members. We should release part of that to them so that they can take over control with the advisory of the pension schemes. Actuarial issues and their impact on pension benefits must fully be addressed. Actuaries play a very big part in pension schemes. They work hand in hand with the pension schemes and funds. But at times, schemes find it their work very complicated, and something that is going to take. I've worked a lot with actuaries. Something that is going to take around 2-3 days. It can take around maybe 2 weeks. So we need to start addressing actuary. We sort of tend to think that they know everything. So, and then we also pass over the administration to the actuaries. And yet we can do that work within the administration itself. So I always advocate for any complicity or between the administrators and actuaries should always be revised, and their impact in terms of how it affects the benefit. Are we using formulas that are bringing in a lot of benefit from the pension fund? Do we need to revise formulas? What kind of are they? Because we tend to lag behind in terms of technology, and then we use formulas that actually existed long time ago. And we leave all that calculation to the actuaries. And then they come up with this big sum of money to be paid out to pensioners. And then the administrators have to go back and then recalculate and take it back to the actuaries. So we've got to work with our actuaries, very close to them, to understand their point of view, and then sit on the table, understand their work. Don't leave it to be just emailed or to be in their offices. Sit down at the table, let's understand the actuarial work and how we can go about it. Because it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of money for the pension fund. And instead of this money being invested to be paid out to the members, it all goes to the actuaries. The dynamics of pension investment must be clearly highlighted for better estimated results. So there's a lot of changes in investment, and it changes every day, every second, but the trustees don't understand this. The only thing they see is the annual report, how it has been done this year and this year. We need to go in there and understand the dynamics. The fund managers need to highlight clearly what they're doing to the administrators and the trustees, such that this comes up under transparency as well. Revised policies of pension scheme at the time of distribution. What do I mean by that? We concentrate too much of maximization, administration of funds, and then we go wrong at the time of retirement when you're actually giving away the retirement benefit to the members. Something somehow happened. So we've got to revise policies of how we distribute benefits, especially where beneficiaries are involved in death cases. When beneficiaries involved in terms of death cases, we tend to use the old structure, but we've got to revise policies according to what is existing. The pension system is moving very fast and is very dynamic now in terms of investment. In terms of how distribution can be done, we've got to revise the old system. We tend to, I know there's a regulator, but the administrators need to work with the regulators to revise these policies all the time. And this is how we're going to give a better service, not only to the members, but to the economy itself. Okay, I understand that. I think the formula affects mainly the DP. On the DC, I think it's the charge, and the charge is always very minimal. The annual charge on the saving on each individual account is usually 0 point something, 50. So they always, the regulator and the policymakers always make sure that you get as much as possible out of your pension, because it's a lifetime saving. The fund, the pension fund is going to use your money for almost 60 years to invest it. So they want to charge you the minimum they can. And it's usually half a cent sometimes, or even 1 cent, maybe on a monthly basis. So I'll move on to the lady's question here, and then I'll finish with the gentleman here. I think your question was about actuarial.
No, it was in relation to members' participation in the type of investments.
Oh, members' participation in the types of investments. Okay. Yeah, this is where we hand the members the authority to actually determine where they can invest their pension. It's working too well in Europe, but here people are very ignorant of what is out there because of the limited investment. And you have to be very careful when you move the investment in the hands of the individuals, because although you give them the authority to manage it, you're still responsible for it. So if you don't give them proper advisory, and they make any type of switch, if they switch investments, because some of these come up and they're very enticing, and the member can do that. I've got a customer who lost almost half their pension overnight. He just switched from one asset class to the other because of what they promised, and he actually lost half of it. And you can't get it back. So you've got to assess if members understand what they're doing, because you'll still be responsible for that. They'll come back to you, even if you give them the authority to manage their own funds. In Africa, we still can't do that at the moment. Although I'm advocating for it, it's working very well in Europe, but here it's still premature to be taken over. We need a lot of advisory in investment. We need a lot of advisory from fund managers, proper fund managers. Yeah, Mike, I'll come back to you. Let me just answer the four. You asked the changes under the 401k and 4013. These are the major pension types in America. I think it's only in America. I haven't seen it anywhere. But I'm not going to comment about it very much because there's a lot of controversy about it, and they keep on changing. It's always in the papers. And it involves their health plan as well. So it's something that I'm not going to go deep in, as there's still a lot of controversy. But I said I highlighted it, that there's a lot of changes that are taking place in America. That is what is happening. But I'm not going to comment about it very much because it's something that is still under a lot of changes and controversy. I'll leave it to that. Members should be allowed to give as much more information about their accounts and how they are managed, because it is very limited. In Africa, it's almost next to nothing. The member doesn't know about their fund until when they're handed the retirement. I don't even know how they calculate it. They don't even know how. So that should change. In Europe, it's very different. I can calculate how much I'll get at 60 years. I can do that with my pension. So that is something that I want I would advocate. I'm a highlighter, sorry, I'm not a decision maker. I would advocate for, such that let the members at least give them a percentage of allowance of knowing how they're being managed. Because in Africa, they're not aware at all. They're not aware at all. So the public should come in, and they a higher percentage should be raised so that the public can come in to manage their own funds. With that, I'd like to thank you so much for today. It's been a very, very active audience, and I believe I'll have that tomorrow. We are so proud and very privileged to have all of you here. And I'll close this session by thanking the organizers for the ABMC, Joseph, Victoria, and the team for this hotel. It's been an amazing day for us. Thank you so much. Thank you. See you tomorrow.